So I will say, I guess the biggest thing I had to overcome though was I wanted to ask like a few historians about Oscarville, and a
Mm,
lot of them didn't want to do like the interviews because they had connections within Forsyth County, and they didn't want to ruin those connections by talking about like Black history because it's a very, for some reason, of course, it's very controversial.
Hey, what's up with it, y'all? We are back with another episode of For All We Know. And this one is special because I love documentaries. If you see my page, you'll see that I like a lot of different like informational things centered around black culture, jazz, hip hop, obviously, sports, and I love black history, right? And today is special because I have the director and executive producer, William Eric Anderson, and he has created something that we've all talked about, but not necessarily know the full history. At least most of us don't know the full history of it. And I would hear things here and there about it, but I think it was really impactful to watch this documentary. And of course, I'm talking about Surviving Lake Lanier. So when I first moved here from California, I heard so many things about Lake Lanier, and there's so much information out there, but I really wanted to kind of research it myself and see what it is that it was, what it is that it is now, and why people are talking about it so much. So the film uncovers the submerged history of Oscarville. For those that don't know, it's a very um, thriving black community in Georgia that was displaced and flooded to create Lake Lanier. There, you know, Williams' work like sheds light on the racial injustice and actually gives the full story if you're not aware, because I wasn't. And it's really, really interesting. And, it kind of, things just kind of weave together. And I don't want to give too much away. You could obviously check online, but the way that he tells the story is incredibly, incredibly insightful. So there's still lingering effects today, and there's so much erasure, as we all know from Black history in this. So what really made me look into it more, a comedian by the name of Amber Ruffin did a monologue once and was talking so much about like the erasure of black communities, and Lake Lanier was in there. I was like, oh, I live in Georgia. I've heard about this before, and she discussed it a little bit, but I just had to dive in. So it's important to look at. It's important to research, and honestly, it's important to look at this documentary. So, William, thank you so much for joining us today because
Absolutely.
this is something that should be talked about more. And I guess I kind of want to start off with what inspired you to create this documentary, and like how did your personal experiences kind of influence the narrative?
Yeah, so, what inspired me to make Surviving Lake Lanier was that we first made my first featured film that I made alongside my wife was called Lanier. And obviously that was a horror film slash thriller about Lake Lanier. And one thing that we couldn't just do due to budget constraints was like go into the full history of like what happened to make this large body of water that is Lake Lanier. And again, it's my first time making a film, so you learn so much. You don't know what you don't know, right? So after making that film, um, I was happy that we finally did it. We finally made our first featured, but I was like, nah, I wanna go more into like that history for people to know, all of what our people had to endure, um, and why this body of water was like made, and how, a thriving Black community, kind of just like Tulsa, Oklahoma,
Mhm.
where they had the Greenwood district was destroyed, right? Oscarville. So that's what really led us to make Surviving Lake Lanier. Now, personally, I just always have been a lover of Black history as well. I never knew growing up how much Black people gave to the world, right? Aside from, making America basically off free labor, but also our inventions and how much, African Americans have made that we use today, like, the telephone, the traffic light, peanut
So
butter,
random, so many things, man.
so
The
many
elevator,
things.
that's
The
crazy.
elevator. Yeah. So when you think about it, it's just like we've contributed a lot, like willingly and unwillingly.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just in this era now where I want to give my contribution to make our people aware of things that have been swept under the rug. And there's so many stories like this that we probably don't even know.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how did you approach kind of like weaving in the historical aspect and the like personal testimonies that you had to craft like that compelling documentary because it does pull you in.
Yeah, so I thought like coming into it, I want to get some other opinions because I know there's some people that just love that lake. They grew up on it. They don't really know about the history or they just don't want to acknowledge it.
Mm,
So I knew coming in, I wanted to do that as well, just to see like why do they think like these drownings always happen? And then I knew I needed to pull someone in that had like a real drowning experience or a near death experience, like Chastity.
yeah.
That's more on the, that's more on the spiritual tip of like understanding, like, yeah, like there are graveyards under this lake, there's businesses under this lake, there's so much under this lake because these graves weren't placed somewhere else at the time of when the lake was built. So so I just wanted to really approach like, hey, what is your experience with Lake Lanier? And do you think it's deeper than that? Do you think your near-death experience is tied to the destruction of Oscarville and the spirits that are underneath the lake?
So, did your like background in filmmaking kind of help like shape the storytelling techniques of this one or
Absolutely, yeah. So, my experience with filmmaking is, I've been doing it for about like a decade. I didn't go to film school, so it's all off just watching like my favorite movies or my favorite documentaries and learning like, why does it look this way? Why did this happen in the story? And understanding how to craft like an actual script or craft an actual documentary, like so that experience of just being like just getting into the field honestly is what I leaned on to really make Surviving Lake Lanier and also just looking at things as inspiration. I think that's another thing like I feel like we're in a time where you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can, but you can be inspired by numerous things and then just make your own wheel off that inspiration.
yeah. And no, that's really really true. And the fact that you didn't go to film school, you just had a passion for it, right? And
Yeah.
you just went off of that.
I
I
found it at
commend you.
like 21 or something like that. I didn't do it immediately coming out of high school. I was still trying to find my way. So
Yeah.
first I got into acting. So I wanted to act at first, and then I didn't like the idea of like I always have to wait for someone to say yes. So I was like, okay, now I wanna create my own opportunities and try to do, so I started off with skits as most people do, just, fooling around, doing funny stuff. And then I was like, huh, could I do a short film? Then I did a short film. Then, I wrote a pilot. Then I wrote a scary movie after Get Out, because that Get Out was really my spark of like,
Uh,
okay, right?
incredible.
Like yeah, like 2016, which is wild. Like it's almost 10 years old, but
That is it that old now?
is
Wow.
that old, man? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that's what did it for me, honestly. That was 2016, and I was like, okay, like yeah, I wanna take a crack at
This
this.
and you're it's crazy to think that you're how many films in right now?
Um, just two,
Just two, but
technically.
still, that's a lot of work. That's a
Yeah,
lot of work. So
it's a lot of work.
yeah, that's great, man. So what challenges kind of did you face bringing in the hidden history of Oscarville to light, and how did you kind of like overcome those, if you had any at all?
Um, that's a great question, man. So I will say, I guess the biggest thing I had to overcome though was I wanted to ask like a few historians about Oscarville, and a
Mm,
lot of them didn't want to do like the interviews because they had connections within Forsyth County, and they didn't want to ruin those connections by talking about like Black history because it's a very, for some reason, of course, it's very controversial, and they didn't want to lose out on, I guess, whatever business they had going up in Forsyth County and things such as that. So I did have to overcome how to tell the story of like Oscarville's destruction, like on a day-to-day basis, as you saw in the documentaries, because like I wanted somebody to like go through that to actually say the things that we had to narrate. I wanted someone to like sit down and, explain what happened on a day-to-day basis that led to Oscarville's destruction, but we could never, for some reason, we just couldn't land anybody that was like a historian that wanted to talk about the story of Oscarville. Of course, because of business reasons, like personal reasons. But I found that very interesting. Like, there's a lot of people that don't want to speak on it.
that is crazy.
Yeah,
That's
right?
crazy, but that's reality. At the
Yeah.
same, that just lets you know, like you said, that it's still very, very prevalent in our society that they didn't even want to risk speaking on the truth because of ties to the county. That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
So can you like kind of discuss the a little more of the research process involved in like uncovering these stories and like the facts presented? Like how do you sift through them? How do you see, okay, this is, we really need to punch this up, or we really want to highlight this part?
Yeah, I would say like listening to the audience as well,
Mm,
because Lanier, told us a lot, and that's why I'm thankful that that film didn't perform how I wanted it to, just because then I could better understand like there's so much power in listening to your audience.
mm,
Um, it's like a dance you have to do because you have to listen to yourself, like what do you want to get out of it, but at the same time you have to listen to your audience of what they want. So I saw the critiques of Lanier, and what people wanted more of. And I was like, oh, people want to, they want to learn about Oscarville. It might not be as sexy or entertaining as Lanier, right? But it's still like, hey, I can feed you this information that I feel like you should know. Um, just so we had so many, this is just another example of like so many thriving Black communities that were destroyed. And ultimately, that's why, us as Black people were behind the eight ball, like from the wealth gap perspective and the resource perspective. I mean, that's kind of fair now, the resources, but it's like, we got off to like, um, not a false start, but we got off late. Like, you know what I mean?
mm.
So, yeah, that's how I went about it. Just listen to the audience from Lanier, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what we need to do, like to get in there and to like really, inspire people and to, make them feel something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I completely understand. Like it's a battle sometimes because you want to do something, but if people are looking to you to kind of tell that history part of it, you kind of have to dive all in, and it's important too, right? Uh,
Right. Exactly.
so how did you like? How did some of your collaborations influence the final product of Surviving Lake Lanier?
So the collaboration, you mean like with the team?
Yeah.
Like with the team? Yeah,
Hmm.
so I had most of the team that made Lanier, they worked on Surviving Lake Lanier because I'm big on, working with the same people to grow the chemistry because I feel like we'll get to a point where you already know what I'm thinking without me having to say anything to
Right.
you. So that was really important for me. And our DP was amazing. Shout out to Kanish Grover. He was born in India and he moved to Georgia and he's absolutely amazing. He went to Full Sail University. So he just understands like light. He understands like, when you're going for a certain mood. He understands all of that. So, that was a key player in collaboration for making Surviving Lake Lanier. And then, I worked with the same sound guy who worked on Lanier. So a lot of filmmaking is about like trying to work with like the same people because you just want that chemistry because filmmaking is very expensive. So the more and more you're on one accord with the team, the even better because then you can get more things in a day that you need and you don't have to like fall behind. So that was definitely instrumental to the doc.
Okay. Okay. Now, the film obviously touches on themes of racial injustice and historical erasure. What message do you like kind of want the viewers to take away from these kind of things?
Yeah, man, the message that I want viewers to take away from this is to understand that how successful like African Americans were in which we had like our own towns and stuff like that. That's number one, what I want them to take away. And number two is probably that, like, in my opinion, like Lake Lanier is haunted. There's more to it than just, people not wearing life jackets.
Mm,
That's my opinion personally. So I think just people understanding that is what I want them to take away from the documentary as well. And to just be precautious when you're out on the lake if that's, what you want to do at the end of the day. Like take precaution because it's not like all fun and games.
yeah,
So yeah.
definitely, definitely. And how did you kind of like ensure the documentary respectfully represented the communities by that were affected by Lake Lanier and the history?
Yeah, so I had some conversations with descendants
Okay.
from Oscarville and you know, just listened to them, understood, what they went through and them telling me about, their ancestors and, what just the night of like terror and just learning every single detail that I could like about it so I could tell this story in a day-to-day basis of like what happened on, you know, September 16th of 1956, like getting down to the nitty-gritty to understand everything like about it. I felt like that was so important and I was gracious to get that.
Yeah. Did you get any feedback from the like descendants? Did they watch it or
Yeah,
did
they
they?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they enjoyed it and they felt like it was accurate from the account of some of the descendants were like, yeah, that's accurate. Some of them wanted a little bit more like in it about particular people that were affected
Mm,
within Oscarville, but it was a small community. So I was coming more from the angle of like what everyone ultimately had to endure, just because I didn't want the documentary to talk about, like 1,000 residents or 500 residents, because there's just
right.
not enough time in a doc. So instead of picking people, because I felt like that was kind of unfair, I was like, let me just tell about the entire community collectively.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I feel that. Um, what were you don't have to give the full thing, but you can if you want to because I watched this. I think I know the answer, but what were some of the most surprising discoveries made during the filming?
Some of the most surprising
Yeah.
discoveries made.
Because I want people to watch it. I know what I'm thinking, but I want
Definitely
people.
comes to mind when I talked to Steve Guillo
Okay.
about the racism that he endured um, at the lake. I would say that really surprised me because that was the first time like a white man like understood like what
from
happened within, huh? What'd you say?
he saw it from the other side.
Yeah, he saw it from the other side, so that really like shocked me when I first spoke to him when he just said like, yeah, Forsyth County is racist. Like, I have a black son. And I just didn't put two and two together when he told me like he was getting picked on. He just thought he just didn't like the area, but it was deeper than that. And then I would say what also was surprising when we were interviewing um Chucky, and he just, because he grew up on the lake, he didn't find it to be, you know, shocking at all. Like, I mean, haunted at all. And, he had his own near-death experience like that he talked about, and he got hypothermia and he almost didn't make it out alive. And then I would probably say with Chastity too, how she saw like a demon. When she talked about that, that was really shocking. Like, and how she went under the water and she saw trees. Um, I hope I'm not spoiling it too much, but
No,
those were the
I think you're doing a really, really good job because I'm glad you brought up the demon part because I had to rewind it because I thought she said a name. And I was
right,
like, did I not catch that name? It sounded like she said, right?
right,
Um, no, it's no, you're not giving it away, but her story is wow.
yeah,
That one, and it was placed perfectly in the documentary too.
yeah. I
Um,
wanted to save, I wanted to save that one
mhm,
like for the last bit, because it was just so impactful. And funny story, we actually had a drive to Florida.
mhm.
I think she was in Tampa,
Okay.
but she couldn't get down here for the shoot, so we had to go up there to get her for her to tell it because I saw her viral TikTok talking about it, and I
Mhm.
was like, oh no, like you got to be in this documentary,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you have the most impactful, profound story. Um, and ultimately that's where Surviving Lake Lanier like came from because I was like, yeah, we have to do this. Your story is just so impactful.
And I was gonna ask, which interview like that you did was the most impactful? Was it hers?
Yeah, it was definitely Chastity's. It was definitely hers. It was so emotional, and
Mhm.
just to see her like have to relive like what she went through like in real time. Because the questions I'm asking her, it's tough. Like if you've been through that.
Mhm.
So it just shocked me how much you know like she didn't even know about like Oscarville and all that. So it really made sense to her after the fact. Like imagine you have like a near death experience at Lake Lanier and you don't even know about the history like about it, and you just learn about it after your near death experience.
Mm.
It's probably a whole like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. And you know, hearing her hearing her describe it and saying like what she saw, it probably all clicked for her
yeah,
afterward, you know?
yeah,
Um, yeah, that one was crazy. But like with that, like the haunting aspect and the historical aspect, was it hard to balance the two? Um, like in the documentary, like the tone of it.
yeah. I think I was really looking at it like, okay, how are we gonna balance it? It was really hard to get down, but I realized we just had to find those like pockets of like, okay, this is the time where we can talk about the history. So, to the people out there that are going to watch the doc, it's like we told the history side of it first. We kind of built it up to present day uh 2024. I think it dropped 2024. But yeah, to present day 2024. So we're literally taking you from like, 1954 all the way to 2024. So because I'm telling all that history, now you get to hear about, the destruction of Oscarville, how there was night riders driving out black people. And then after, wiping out all the black people, literally a racial cleansing is what it's called. Then after that, they just decide to destroy everything and to pour water on it to make a lake. So, you hear about all that. And then now in present day, now you get to hear accounts of people's near-death experiences under this lake after I told you all about that history. So now that haunted factor, it's a little bit easier now because, I don't have to tell you it's haunted. I just told you about
Right.
all this bloodshed that happened, etc. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So after this one, because I think everybody should watch Surviving Lake Lanier. Um, do you have any thoughts on like exploring other hidden stories? Because there's so many. There's so many.
There's so many. Yeah, absolutely I do. I like the because I feel like my superpower is being able to like bring awareness to things that are, you know, no pun intended, but like underwater or just
Mm.
it's just like it's swept under the rug. So I would love to continue to tell stories like Lake Lanier. People have been asking about Seneca Village in New
I was gonna
York.
bring that up. I was gonna bring it up off camera.
Yeah.
I talked to so many people and a lot of people that are from New York. I heard it on, I think it was Black Information Network on the radio, and they were talking about Seneca Village, and it was like maybe um, a 3 minute like little spot, and they told the story, and they said which is now Central Park. I was like, excuse me,
Yeah.
and I've
It's Central Park.
never heard this before. So I told people, have you heard of this? And I went online. You barely can find anything on
Yeah.
it. And
It's
yes,
wild.
please make it. Please make it because I myself would like to know more about it. And I think other people should too. And documentaries are a really good way to learn a lot more and go and do more research too. So I'm so glad you
Absolutely.
said that one.
That might be the next one. That might be the next
Yeah,
stock for sure.
that one is crazy.
Yeah.
That one took me out. I was like, what? But it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and I was in Central Park like because I was low key thinking about going to NYU at one point, and I remember vividly just like walking around Central Park, like, cool, I'm gonna grab an ice cream. Like I'm not thinking nothing of it. Like, oh yeah, it's a park, So it's crazy too, because in general, I'm thinking about also doing like just a documentary over African American burial grounds in general and
Mhm.
how houses are on top of basically a burial ground underneath that, you know what I'm saying? That people, I mean, they may know, they may not know that, there's literally, coffins underneath this land that
Mm.
was, slaves that were either freed or non-freed, but they're in the ground that this house is built off of. So there's a lot of instances like that, like businesses, obviously parks,
Yeah.
etc.
Wow. That's yeah. Yeah, you definitely got to make that one. Definitely got to make that one. So I guess like reflecting on it, you made that film. What do you had any like kind of personal growth from that, or like insights you kind of gained from that experience itself?
Absolutely. I learned all money is not good money. I learned that.
Mm,
I learned, we're capable of more than what we think. It sounds cliche, but that film literally, I would say Lanier more so. Lanier literally squeezed me to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and
mm,
also just knowing that, if you're setting out to cause an impact with a film like Lanier or Surviving Lake Lanier, everything's going to take care of itself in the end because we get so wrapped up, and rightfully so. You got to look at the business side with the creative side, but sometimes the business side can like just go over the creative side. You know what I mean?
mhm,
And
mhm.
I learned to not allow that to happen, not to worry about it, and to just let go and let God to just take the wheel. Honestly, if I say like I want to put this out in the world, everything else will take care of itself. The right people will come along for that, for
Right.
wherever it's supposed to go. Like I'm in no rush to go like Hollywood or uh to make a studio film. Of course I love studio films when it's like done right, but I'm just in no rush because I think the journey of just learning how to do it independently prepares me for whenever that day comes, if
Yeah.
if it does come to make a studio film. So I'm enjoying it honestly, and making independent stuff is just so fun. Like,
Yeah.
you
We
know,
were off camera. I got to do it, man. I got to do it.
you got to do it, man. You can do it, and you can always lean on me as a resource, whatever, man. Like I always said too, when I get to a place, like I want to give people my knowledge to avoid, like, hey, make sure you don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, because this really hurt us when making Lanier, because I feel like featured films, they're a lot harder to make than documentaries. Like there's so many variables with like featured films. Just because you need more of a crew, documentaries you can really like run and gun those, like, you know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
more like grassroots. A featured is a bit more harder to do for
Yeah,
sure.
that's scripted. It's a lot more scripted and everything too.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Um, so besides your documentary, what other documentaries do you enjoy? Like, what other ones really stand out to you?
Um, oh, in general?
Just in general, yeah.
Uh, in general, man, I've been loving these American Manhunt documentaries on Netflix. I think those are very well done. Um, I watched one over like 9/11. I've seen so many of those, so I got to see that one. Got to
Okay,
see one over the Boston Marathon. Um, what else? I love Black and Missing. That's a great documentary. I'm doing a missing black women documentary. It's
nice.
coming out here pretty soon because I didn't know. I watched the documentary Gabby Petito. I don't know. Did you see that one?
Was that the girl that was she was kidnapped and then she eventually killed her attacker or kidnapper or something like that? Am I thinking of the right?
No, no. This one
No,
was
I'm
that
thinking of Centonia Brown. I think that's what her name.
Antonio Brown.
No, no, no. What was her name? It was a young black girl. I think it's like Centonia Brown.
Oh yeah, I
I,
know what you're talking about.
okay, okay, but yes,
Thi-
I do know who you're talking about. That was the one that went on a road trip with her boyfriend.
yeah, that's the
Okay,
one. That's the
okay,
one.
yeah.
So I watched that with my wife, and in the third episode, they actually started talking about how, people of color don't get the coverage like Gabby Petito, and her
Mhm.
stepdad was like, of course I didn't want to hear that. Like it pissed me off. But then he said, well, I started looking into it, and it's true. Like people of color, when they go missing, they don't get nowhere near the coverage, nowhere near the task force, nowhere
Yeah.
near the resources to be found. It's just more so, oh, they ran away. And why is it that they ran away? Slavery.
Mm,
Slavery was like, when someone in the documentary we're making, we talk about a woman called Odie Judge, in which the Washingtons owned her and she ran away for obvious reasons.
mhm.
But that's where what it kind of stems from. That's the historic aspect of like, why is it that people of color don't get the same look as white people when it comes to like the media and
Right.
all this when they're missing.
Mhm.
Um, so that was a good one. The Gabby Petito was a good one. That inspired me for obviously the documentary that I'm doing now. Obviously love the Tulsa documentaries as well. Over the thriving black community in the Greenwood district. So yeah, those are some.
Nice.
Mhm.
So, I appreciate you coming on because I feel like everybody should go watch this. Please go watch Surviving Lake Lanier.
Thank
Uh,
you.
because I I've never seen anybody actually tell the story, right? And the fact that you experience people that didn't want to tell the story means you should tell the story even more. Um,
Y-
and
Yeah, I
I,
had someone tell me that Oscarville wasn't even real as well,
you see what I'm saying? Like,
which was
oh, it's
crazy.
fake. It's a made up story, but it's easier to, you know, divert the conversation to fantasy when you don't want to talk about something. So, um,
Exactly.
yeah, so that's unfortunate and crazy. But I always ask this, and I think you kind of answered it earlier, but I always ask my guests if if you didn't exist, what would the world be missing out on?
Man,
It's
what
a
a
tough.
great question. What would the world be missing out on? Well, now they would be missing out on, knowing about Oscarville, Georgia. I feel like the world would be missing out on, you know, uh, just someone that wants to just be proof that you can take matters into your own hands. Um, it would just be missing out on like somebody that's like, I don't know. I feel like that can be an inspiration to others to kind of set their own path and do their own thing in the world of entertainment, I would say. Like, I feel like that's what the world would be missing out on.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think so too, man. Like, just don't wait for the perfect time. Just do it.
Yeah, there is no perfect time,
Yeah.
honestly. I wanted to wait to make another feature, but I was like, there ain't no perfect time. You can't wait on anyone
It's not.
to
It's
save
not. Oh,
you.
and I have to ask because I haven't. Have you ever been to Lake Lanier? Have you swam in Lake Lanier?
Oh no, I've never swam in Lake Lanier.
Oh,
But
yeah.
obviously I've been there for the movie. The movie was
Okay.
shot
Yeah. Yeah.
on Lake Lanier.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I've been numerous times, and every time I go, I'm like, I'm not getting in that water.
And then the
Um,
one. Yeah.
nah.
I actually have not went. The news is good enough for me. That's close as I wanna be.
I understand. Oh yeah, you're in Atlanta, right? You're in Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in Atlanta.
Oh, dope, dope.
But yeah, man. So thank you so much for pulling up, and
Thank
sharing your
you.
story. And yeah, man, we gotta get that Seneca Village going. Let me know how I gotta help
Okay.
because that one's that one's a crucial one. But
I'll let you know. I'll let you know. I might have to
yeah,
go
please
up to
do.
New York.
Yeah, please do. But yeah, William Eric Anderson. Surviving Lake Lanier, director and executive producer. Please go watch it. I believe it's on. I watched it on Tubi.
Yeah, it's on Tubi now. You can watch it
Okay.
for free. There ain't no
Yep.
more. You got to pay for it. You can watch it for
Yeah,
free.
I
That still
watched it
supports
on
us.
Tubi. So go support. Go check it out. And you already know the motto before we leave: be yourself, because everyone else is taken. We out.
I love that.